My name is Daniel. I'm from DEPT, and DEPT is an agency with the headquarters in Amsterdam, but we have offices all across Europe and even in the US. And like mentioned, we work for all kinds of brands. And we are actually a special kind of agency because we exist of several specialists who are very good in one thing, like e-commerce, etc., or in design. And together we are kind of a full-service agency who help our clients navigate the digital world. But today I want to tell you something about intelligence and not about AI, because AI has a kind of strange feeling to it. And if you know the Space Odyssey, a video behind these letters, you know how people kind of freak out if you talk about AI. So today I want to talk about intelligence because it's far more approachable than AI and it's even already around us. But before I start my talk, I want to kind of discuss with you why an agency who's making websites and apps and who does digital strategy and digital campaigns, why an agency is interested in intelligence. Well, it's of course a hot topic, obviously, but that's not the reason why we invest time and money and attention to it. The main reason is that as an agency we design and create the digital interactions between people and brands. And these digital interactions are changing in the upcoming years a lot because of AI and intelligence. So we need to understand it, because if we are making stuff and designing stuff, we better understand it before we create it. So that's the reason why I kind of spend time on this topic and why we kind of read about it and why we are on South by Southwest. And I want to share our visions about how intelligence is going to evolve in the next years. But before I do so, I want to quickly look back at where we come from. And maybe it's helping to think about mobile before we talk about intelligence. Because if we would have this talk 12 years ago in this same place, we would probably have our first smartphones, but the idea of having all music available through our phones and all videos and all content and all Netflix series through our phone was kind of unimaginable. Even though we had those devices back in those days, 10 years ago, we couldn't think of this. It was like, wow, that's amazing if one day we can have it on our phones. And now we can have it, and then suddenly you have this problem. Okay, I have all the music in the world on my phone, but what I'm gonna listen? Or I can watch everything, but I don't know what to watch because I can watch everything. So this kind of changing. So in the beginning you're like, wow, maybe one day, and now it is, and then it's kind of puzzling what to do with it. At the same time, in the beginning our phones were very smart, but as the phones got more advanced, we often ask ourselves how smart is our smartphone, especially like in an event like this. Most phones didn't go quiet automatically. You had to do it yourself. So how smart is it? And a good example of this, it was a Facebook post automatically posted by Facebook on his wall of a friend of mine, which said, we really like that you're sharing your memories with us and your friends. This is a memory you probably will want to see again. And it was an accident of his car. So not very, very smart. So we are still kind of having all these possibilities and having our smartphones, but in reality, it's kind of, it's all in there, but it's a bit like a Swiss knife. You have a lot of tools and things we can do, but the knife is getting thicker, and when it gets thicker, it's difficult to put it in your pocket, and it's not anymore such a handy device anymore. So, and a good example of this is when on a mobile phone you look at your notifications from, for example, WhatsApp, and I'm in many groups on WhatsApp, like maybe like 6 or 7 groups, and most of my notifications are like this. Not very smart as well. So endless notifications for laughs from friends. And laughs are of course good, but my phone could kind of recap them to maybe, I don't know, a kind of a notification who groups the information for me. So if you look at the time with our mobile phones and our smart devices around us, we are kind of going towards a time when we're going to have a lot of devices who are all transmitting notifications and transmitting information and asking for your information as a user. And the expectation is that in about a few years we will have 14 devices per person. So 14 smart devices who are around you in your life, laptops, tablets, phones, but also smart house things, maybe a car who's sending notifications, who are all kind of asking your attention. And it's kind of getting a bit annoying. So we as an agency see that people are experiencing digital friction. I don't know, maybe if it's kind of, if you know it from your own life, I do know it, that sometimes it's a lot of work to kind of maintain all those digital devices around you, and it's a lot of kind of work instead of making your life easier. Sometimes it's a burden instead of a relief. Pardon. So it's a bit like a supermarket. Like if the supermarket gets too big, then it's not so handy anymore. There's like a phase when it's nice to have a bigger supermarket, but at a certain point, it's too big and you don't go there anymore because it's too big and you just want to get milk, and then it's kind of difficult. So digital is kind of heading towards a phase where the supermarket is getting bigger, but it doesn't make you much happier in a way. So how Mr. Zuckerberg says it, the expectation is that in the next upcoming years we will have more and more things going on, more apps, more devices, more notifications, etc. So it's going to be even more digital friction around us. And that's the reason why I want to talk with you about intelligence, because often when people talk about AI or intelligence, they don't kind of ask themselves why will we want it to have it. And I think we will want to have it because we need it, because our lives are getting cluttered by technology instead of being more kind of easy. And that's why we already now see the rise of intelligence in apps, in services, on websites, etc. But before I go into some examples in our expectation how it will continue in the next 4 years, I just want to share with you our vision of what AI is, what is kind of underlaying underneath this intelligence development. And AI is often seen as technology, can be software, can be hardware, with human capabilities like expression or emotion expression or learning, etc. And AI has often the kind of the capability to learn. So you don't have to program it totally like we did with software. And a good example is Mario. So if you're a developer, you know that if you want to make a Mario game, you have to kind of code every bit of the game. And things which are not coded are impossible. So you can go left and right, you can go up and down. But if I decide to go into the castle, no chance. I cannot go there because it's not coded. It's not created by the creator. And this is how actually digital industry works nowadays. Like we build things, we code things, etc. But they're limited by the creator. But some things, if you want to code them, like a self-driving car, is so difficult that it's uncodable almost, because the real world is so complicated that if you want to code for every situation, you'll be probably coding for many years. And that's where AI and learning comes into play. Because if you give this car some standard rules, like what is the air, what is the ground, what is left and right, then you can send it on the road, and the car is kind of watching and learning the road and also the behavior from other cars, and learning behavior by copying other cars. And George Hawks, one of the guys who is behind Comma AI, was giving his talk about the need for data. So AI is learning by looking in the real world and getting data and programming itself. So every day these cars send the information back to the servers. Those servers kind of learn from this data, and they send the improved driving algorithms to the cars. So this is kind of a cool example of AI. But that's all for today about AI. I'm going to talk about intelligence. It's more approachable. So we think we're going to go through 4 phases of intelligence before we come to real AI, which is kind of big and impressive. And it's starting all very small. And maybe the best example of intelligence services is Spotify. I cannot see you guys because of the lights, but many of you probably use Discover Weekly. I mean, at least I do, and I had more of these talks, and most of the time, 80% of the people, they use Discover Weekly in the room. And not only they use it, but people are also very, very happy with it. And this solves the problem of, okay, now I have all the music I want on my phone. What should I listen? And Discover Weekly helps you. And Discover Weekly is actually based on AI learning. So it learns from your behavior and from you listening to music. And every bit of what you do, from pumping up the volume or skipping a song, searching for an artist, every information you kind of transmit by your actions in the app is used to make you a profile and to learn about your music taste. And then they give you the songs which are for you. And this is pretty much spot on. People are very, very happy with this. So if you're not familiar with this, please use it and try it. It's really, really amazing. Another simple example where kind of AI is just used in a small way is my app from Gmail, or from Google, which I use for my email. And what it does is it predicts answers. So if the email is in English, and most of the time it's in Dutch, so it doesn't work, but in English it works, it predicts the answer. And it gives two or 3 options, and often they are quite good. So you see that AI is kind of being used in a very, very tiny part of the app, answering the question. Another example is, of course, Google Photos, which kind of learns from your photos and makes kind of stories about it, about a holiday or about a trip, etc., and bundles them, and also knows which photo is good and which photo is not good, and removes the screenshots, removes all other things which are not kind of interesting to you. Also an example where AI is being used very, very narrow, but very, very efficient. Also another app same with kind of like airline traffics. We all know the Skyscanner website, etc. It was a big thing a few years ago. But now you have a lot of Skyscanners. So what is the next thing? So Hopper is an app which kind of searches for you while you don't have to search yourself. It's a kind of a search service which reminds you when the prices go down. Also a cool example where AI is being used for a very narrow, smart service. So that's the first phase, intelligence in apps and services, which is used very, very narrow and very handy. But the next phase is like when we're gonna interactive intelligence. And that's really kind of a challenge for us as designers as well, because it's a new interaction, and for new interactions you need new interfaces. And we all know new interfaces which are quite unfamiliar before. But for example, Siri is a perfect example of a new interface which is made for interaction with AI. Because AI needs other ways of communicating than a screen like a website or a screen like an app. Another one which is also famous as an interaction way is, for example, Messenger and chatbots. People talk a lot about chatbots. I don't think chatbots are the goal, but they're a very handy way to communicate with intelligent services because you have this back and forth communication, and people really like it and it feels natural. So that's the reason why also Google put a lot of effort in Assistant. And the cool thing about closer, okay. Is it better? Yes. Okay, cool. Google puts a lot of effort in Assistant because it's their interface for intelligence and the user. And the cool thing about Assistant is it's both voice and chat, while Siri is only voice, and voice can be very awkward at times. I mean, I use Siri only in my car, but if I'm somewhere public, I've never talk to my phone because it feels still silly. I don't know why. And Google Assistant does both ways. They use two interfaces for communicating with intelligence. And a few years ago, we already kind of prototyped this idea of chatting with services instead of only chatting with friends. So it could be that you are kind of talking to friends in a group chat in WhatsApp, and then you ask Airbnb to join the conversation and to understand the context, understand the profiles of the people, and to recommend the right information for this conversation. So instead of apps being kind of containers where you go to, them being smart services who understand language, who understand user needs and behavior, and then kind of contribute in your context where you're already talking about with your friends. Could also be that apps in a certain moment when they turn more to kind of artificial intelligence beings, they communicate with each other with language. So I can follow as a non-programmer, because programmers could easily kind of see what apps are saying to each other, but I cannot. I'm just a regular non-programmable person. I can open up the chat with the apps and see what is happening, and maybe reprogram the apps by just text or language. So you see all those new ways of kind of new interfaces which are being developed so we can interact with intelligence. And I think we are just at the beginning of this. So chatbots feel very advanced for us, but I think we're just starting to kind of scratch on the surface of ways how to talk to intelligence. And the third thing is when the first one was like small services which are very smart. Second development is we're going to have new interfaces to interactive intelligence. The third one is that we gonna ask intelligent services to do tasks for us. And it feels very kind of strange to ask a computer to do something for you. But it's already happening, because if you use Google Assistant and you ask for pizza, the assistant will decide which pizza company he's going to use to deliver the pizza to you. And another example of this, I mean, it's a strange example, I don't know nobody who uses it, is the Google Dash button. You get a button from Amazon and you put it on your washing machine like this, and you press it if you want to have new washing powder. And this is pretty strange to me, because I really believe the washing machine should press this button and not me, because I don't want to order washing powder at all. I think the device will do that. So also with self-driving cars, it's not a strange idea that the self-driving car will decide where to charge, or if it's a self-driving car on gasoline, and I think we will also have those, although nobody thinks about it, they will decide where to charge or get the gasoline. So they will decide that they go to Shell or Chevron or whatever. And the funny thing is, this car is not so kind of sensitive to marketing as people are. So if you have Chevron or Shell or a charging station company, it's going to be a total different question how you're going to do marketing on machines. And I think this marketing is going to be not about marketing, but just about price, pure price and maybe quality. Maybe this car will A/B test gasolines, or the washing machine who orders its own powder will A/B test the washing powders. I mean, why not? And that's also the same thing with Google, why Google is putting so much effort in being in your home with Nest and also Google Home, because Google thinks that these devices will eventually order stuff for you. So the Nest will probably insure your house, maybe one day, we don't know. But with Google Home it's already the case, because behind Google Home is an ecosystem of suppliers which are kind of being put away. So if you're using Google Home quite kind of often, you don't make choices which cab you're going to order. You just say, I want to have a cab, and then Google Home makes this decision for you. So this is a typical case where machines and intelligent services are making choices, consumer choices for us. So that's also the thing, that these services and machines will be the next consumer class, because those machines will make those decisions. So as a marketeer, maybe for commodity goods like washing powder or gasoline, you have to change the way you do marketing, because there is a chance a lot of consumers will disappear as your target group. Of course, for example, jeans or other products which we kind of care about and brands we care about, we will continue to make those choices by ourselves. But from a lot of research, it turns out that people really don't care about 70% of all the brands we kind of interact on a daily basis by buying or using it. So brands are kind of a thing which not a lot of people are really kind of connected to. And we call these machines actually consumer machines, because it's a new kind of consumer class who's making those choices. And these machines are actually making the supermarket smaller. So instead of kind of having this marketplace where you have to make decisions on utility companies, on washing powder, or on gasoline, and all other kind of stuff which you really don't care about, like insurance, etc., these machines kind of make those choices easier for you based on price and quality, etc., and then you just don't care and you let it be and let the machine handle it. So that's like the third development. First was small services which are very intelligent in apps, etc. Second, new interfaces where you can interact. Third, giving those intelligent services the mandate to make choices for you. And then it gets a bit more spooky, and I want to share some learnings we had from the last 2 days in Southwest. So I did some copying from other sessions, but it's good for you guys because it's interesting content. We will eventually for sure go to a kind of a more grouped AI. So I told you about many of these services which are kind of scattered through apps. So Spotify has some intelligence, then there's some intelligence in your mailbox, and some intelligence there and here. But eventually we really believe that we will go towards one intelligence. And this one intelligence will be able to do many things from one single point of entry. So for example, listen all day to what you're saying, and while you're just talking to friends or whoever on the phone, it makes notes, it makes the appointments, it arranges stuff for you. So if you're talking to a friend or a colleague that you're going to go to London on a certain date, this intelligence service will listen in and also already start planning this, putting in your agenda, making notes, etc., and maybe also booking. So, and this is only possible when you kind of combine those intelligences, which are now separated into one intelligence. So I wouldn't be surprised if like in 5 or not maybe 5, but let's say in 10 years, we will stand here and not talk about iOS 10, but about AI 10 like as an operating system in your phone. But there's a scary thing about this, because, I mean, I'm not scary, but it's kind of puzzling thing about this. If the phone is listening all day, or devices are listening all day, and those devices are getting smarter, you will have the situation where your device knows much more about you than maybe we kind of expect them to know. And a good example of this is machines kind of reading emotions. And I want to share a video with you from a small Steve Jobs clip. He's talking about the first iPhone, and an AI system reading his emotions from how he's talking. It's a clip a few years old, but it's very interesting.
I had this idea of being able to get rid of the keyboard, type on a multi-touch glass display. And I asked our folks, could we come up with a multi-touch display that we could type on, I could rest my hands on and actually type on. And about 6 months later, they called me in and showed me this prototype display. And it was amazing. And I gave it to one of our guys. This was in the early 90s. I mean, early 2000s. Yeah. And I gave it to one of our other really brilliant UI folks. And he called me back a few weeks later, and he had inertial scrolling working and a few other things. Now, we were thinking about building a phone at that time. And when I saw the rubber band, inertial scrolling, and a few of the other things, I thought, my God, we can build a phone out of this. And I put the tablet project on the shelf because the phone was more important. And we went and took the next several years and did the iPhone.
So,
And then,
And when we got our wind back and thought we could take on something next, pulled the tablet off the shelf, took everything we learned from the phone.
So you see here that like just by listening in and getting the video images of his face, the AI already can kind of determine how you're feeling. So if your phone knows how you feel, not only what you want, but also knows how you feel, what should it do with it? And that's a question as a designer, what you have to answer if you're building an interface. Another cool example is also the speech. So if you're listening to Siri, you probably know that Siri is not very good in telling you stories because it's kind of the sound. She sounds very strange, kind of a bit. She's like talking into a can, and it's kind of bumpy. But Google is developing a voice which is much more fluent from a machine, which sounds like a real person. So if your phone is talking much more like a human being, and it's also listening like a human being, it knows things like human beings knows. And this is an example of Google. So this is the first voice clip I'm going to let you hear. It's from a classical way, we all know from Siri and other voices on IVRs, in call centers, etc. The second one is from Google DeepMind. And the second one is not done by saying all words and combining those words into sentences, but it's done by just talking 1 hour into the computer and the computer creating new words from 1 hour of speech. It's very interesting. So I'm going to let you listen to it.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Kleiser.
So this sounds kind of familiar, you know, guys. And the second one is how Google does it now.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Kleiser.
Imagine if your phone is talking like that. It would be much more fun. Another one.
Aspects of the Sublime in English Poetry and Painting, 1770 to 1850. Aspects of the Sublime in English Poetry and Painting, 1770 to 1850.
So it will get more personal. Your phone will talk much more like a human being, or other services will talk much more like human beings to you, and they will also be able to listen to you like human beings. And then the question kind of arises, like, what are we going to do with this? So one of the things is, like, if we interact with a human being, we don't know what's happening in your head, but from your face and from your body and how you stand and how you talk, we kind of can guess what's happening inside. And that gives us a feeling of control. And why people are afraid of artificial intelligence is what is happening in the machine is a total black box for us, because machines don't have a face or a body to kind of communicate back. So in one talk we were yesterday, the guys, they told actually the way to make artificial intelligence not scary is to give it a face. Because if we give it a face, we have the feeling that we're kind of knowing what's happening in the head of AI. And they started this project where they kind of make 3D models, which are of course familiar from games and films, but these 3D models are actually interacting real life with you while you're turning on your webcam. So they look at you, they follow you, they react to your emotions, they can read your emotions, they understand you, etc. And it's still in a very early age, and they are being funded A-series. But it won't be strange that one day, if you're interacting with a service where it's getting very personal, for example, like medical care or other services, that you will see a face like this, which is interacting with you. Although you know it's fake, it will give you much more a feeling that you kind of know what's happening in the artificial head of this assistant. And it was quite impressive to see how they are developing this. So to recap and to end my talk, 4 things. The rise of super intelligent services we already see now. It's a development which is obvious. Next thing is that we already are starting to chat with certain services which are using interaction forms like voice or chat. Although a lot of these chat services are really bad at this moment, but they will get better. The third thing is, like, we will allow certain services and hardware to perform tasks for us because it's just very easy. And I think we will see a big rise in this in the next years. And the last thing is that we are eventually, like probably in more years than 5, go towards one AI living on your phone or living in your house, or we don't know yet where, but your phone will be a logical place. And I want to end my talk with today reality, and by using Spotify as an example. So I told you about Spotify learning from everything I do, and I use Spotify already for I don't know, like 7, 8 years. And 1 year ago, music from Apple came along, and music from Apple made a good deal to offer to me, and I have an iPhone, so it makes sense to use Apple Music. But then I realized that I won't switch to Apple Music, although the price is the same, the songs are the same, the interface is roughly the same, and It all is very natural and logical to me to use it because I have an Apple phone. But the reason why I didn't switch was because Spotify had all this data of my behavior and was able to use this data of my behavior to give a great service to me, a great intelligent service of songs on a weekly basis. And this is so valuable to me, this service, this intelligent service, that I won't switch. So the actual songs are a commodity and the actual interface is being commoditized, but intelligent service is not. The intelligent service is making the difference. So intelligence is the next thing which we expected is going to be the differentiator between companies and brands. And like Kelly said from Wired, the next 1,000 startups will be take subject X and add AI, like Hopper did with airlines in the beginning of my talk. So yeah, think about it for your own brand or your own company, how you're gonna kind of use intelligence to make it better. And we do this for our clients, not on a daily basis, but more and more and more. So that was my talk about intelligence. Thank you.